Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Padavajikacharya Stotaras of the Shishi Maharaj Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Bibidi Vandacharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Go Premanandi Hari Hari Bo Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, Chapter 12, Text 35. Chaturhotram karma tantram Chaturhotram karma tantram Upaveda nayasaha Upaveda nayasaha Dharmasya padas chatvaras Dharmasya padas chatvaras Tataiva shrama vrittaya Tataiva shrama vrittaya Chaturhotram karma tantram Upaveda nayasaha Dharmasya padas chatvaras Tataiva shrama vrittaya. Vaishnavis. Chatu 4. Hotram, paraphernalia for sacrifice. Karma, action. Tantram, expansions of such activities. Upaveda, supplementary to the Vedas. Nyaya, biological conclusions. Saha, along with. Dharmasya, of religiosity. Padaha, principles. Chatvaraha, 4. Tata eva, in the same way. Ashrama, social orders. Vrittayaha, occupations. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The 4 kinds of paraphernalia for conducting the fire sacrifice became manifest. The performer, in parentheses, the chanter, the offerer, the fire, and the action performed in terms of the supplementary Vedas. Also the 4 principles of religiosity, truth, austerity, mercy, and cleanliness, and the duties in the 4 social orders all became manifest. Purport. Did I read that wrong? Sorry. Oh, in the book it says social. Also the 4 principles of religiosity, truth, austerity, mercy, and cleanliness, and the duties in the 4 social orders, in my book it says, all became manifest. Oh, you're reading from the database there? Yeah, there's mistakes in that sometimes. You got it. This is more authoritative. I think what's in the book is considered more correct. Okay, so purport. Eating, sleeping, defending, and mating are the 4 principles of the material bodily demands, which are common to both the animals and human society. To distinguish human society from the animals, there is the performance of religious activities in terms of the social statuses and orders of life. They are all clearly mentioned in the Vedic literatures and were manifested by Brahma when the 4 Vedas were generated from his 4 mouths. Thus, the duties of humankind in terms of the statuses and social orders were established to be observed by the civilized man. Those who traditionally follow these principles are called Aryans, or progressive human beings. Om Ganata Madamdasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunamilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayamupagaramayam Dadati Swapadantikam. So, Prabhu, could you turn it back to number 34? Shamarari Prabhu. Yes, I just want to say one brief thing about text 34 before I go on to 35. The translation is once upon a time when Brahma was thinking of how to create the worlds, as in the past millennium, the 4 Vedas, which contain all varieties of knowledge, became manifested from his 4 mouths. So that's the translation. So what I found interesting was Prabhupada doesn't say anything about that in the purport. Notice the verses, translation's talking about how Brahma, he's finished chasing after his daughter and he's getting back into his service now, as it's saying, and he's thinking how to create the world as in the past millennium. And here, these 4 Vedas become manifest from his 4 mouths. And in the purport, Prabhupada just talks about how he's forgiven. You know, he had what's called, Prabhupada refers to it, if by chance, so he goes here. Brahma is powerful by dint of his devotional service unto the Lord, and the Lord is always ready to forgive his devotee if by chance he falls down from the noble path of devotional service. So he's considering in the purport that Brahma is in that category, that by chance he fell down from the noble path of devotional service. And it was interesting to me that Prabhupada didn't say anything about how the 4 Vedas were manifested from the mouth of Brahma, but he just, in the whole purport, he's talking about how Brahma has been forgiven for his fall down, which Prabhupada refers to as by chance. And I'd like to make a distinction here between by chance and by accident, because they're 2 different things. Accident would be like, say, it's a Ekadasi, and you take something which you think is completely okay for Ekadasi, and you offer it and you eat it. And then somebody you're with points out to you, Babu, how could you just ate that? You broke Ekadasi. What are you talking about? Look, read the label. and you read the label, or you find out from the person who cooked it or something there was some grains in there. So that's an accident. That would be considered totally accident, because you had no intention to break Ekadasi, and you had no knowledge that you're breaking Ekadasi. It's just a complete accident. Oh man, I wish sorry about that. I didn't know. That's an accident. Okay. By chance, that's a little different, okay? By chance would be something like you're going out on Sankirtan, okay? And you're distributing in a particular place, and you happen to you pass a sports bar or something like that, and there's a game on, okay? It's the Super Bowl, or it's the playoffs, NBA playoffs or something like that. And you used to be into that, so you stop and you're watching it for a while, and the team that you kind of used to root for happens to be just winning, and it's they just scored a touchdown or an important basket or something. You go, yeah, okay, and you're really into it, and then some girl walks up next to you and says, oh, are you a Laker fan or something? And you say, well, yeah, I used to be, and you get into a conversation, and you spend an hour or two talking with her, and finally, just for the sake of the story, you finally, she understands that, oh, you're like a monk or something. There's no question of any further relationship. We'll leave the story at that, okay? But the idea is that you just wasted a couple hours, just kind of chit-chatting. That's if by chance, you see. Because you had no intention to go out and waste 2 hours of Sankirtan time that day, but by chance, you kind of got in a situation where you became overwhelmed, not the right word, but influenced by the circumstances, and you allowed that to eclipse your better judgment. You see, you're out there, you know what you're supposed to be doing, but you just allow your previous conditioning to eclipse your better judgment, and you do something which the whole time you're doing it, you're realizing, well, probably I shouldn't be doing it anyway. It's not that big a deal. I'll just but you're overcome. You're being overly influenced by that previous conditioning, and so that's by chance. And that's what happened to Lord Brahma. It's not like Lord Brahma was premeditating. Okay, I'm going to chase after my daughter. I don't think so. It doesn't say that. It was by chance. He produced his daughter, and he just, whoa, before he knew it, he was attracted to her, and then, he got overwhelmed by that, and he just, he went and he had a fall down. So that's by chance. He was overwhelmed by these circumstances. It wasn't premeditated. It wasn't like, deliberate, but at the same time, he's Lord Brahma. He must have understood that, hey, I'm doing something I'm not supposed to be doing, but anyway, I'm doing it. You see, so it's a little different than an accident. So I just wanted to say that about that. That's Lord Brahma. So Prabhupada says in the purport that the Lord is always ready to forgive his devotee if by chance he falls down. In other words, and Zarchita pointed out yesterday when they asked Prabhupada what's accidental and what's considered deliberate, and Prabhupada said accidental means if they come back. See, so after something like that happens to a devotee, and then he realizes, no, I shouldn't have, that was a mistake, and then he just gets right back into his devotional service, which is like what Lord Brahma's doing here. We hear, he's okay. He's kind of finished with that whole episode there, and he's back to how to create the worlds as in the past millennium, and Krishna forgives him. Krishna just, okay, let's, we'll let bygones be bygones. You're back into your service now, and okay, we're going to overlook, forget about that and just get back into your service. And what's happening here in yesterday's verse and in today's verse, Lord Brahma is being used as an instrument. He's an instrument. He's not the original cause. Like it's interesting how Prabhupada uses the word became manifested. As Lord Brahma, he's thinking about how to create the worlds in the past millennium, and the four Vedas, which contain all varieties of knowledge, became manifested from his four mouths. It doesn't say that he didn't invent them. He didn't, cook them up or anything like that. They just became manifested. So he gets some credit. It's just like, say, I came back from India with a whole big box of cartels, really nice cartels. And I, presented them to Sravas and Mother Tadip. Some of these can be for the temple, some of these for the gift shop. And wow, Bhrgupati just manifested. Okay, so yeah, I get some credit. I figured out how to get him back from India, without them getting confiscated by the customs officials or whatever, But I didn't manufacture those cartels. I didn't pay for those cartels. I didn't think up the idea of cartels. I just got them back here from India. You see, so I get some credit in the whole thing. I was instrumental in getting those really nice first-class cartels back here from Vrindavan or wherever, back to New Dwarka. But, I don't get all the credit. So in the same way, Lord Brahma gets some credit, Krishna's using him as his instrument to manifest the 4 Vedas. And here in today's verse is talking about the 4 kinds of paraphernalia for conducting the fire sacrifices became manifest. You see, it's just, once again, the same word, manifest. It's not like he did it. The performer, and it tells what that, and this is also the 4 principles of religiosity, truth, austerity, and mercy, cleanliness, and the duties of the 4 social orders all became manifest. So he is instrumental. This is a really important thing to understand. And Krishna is the manifester. So, Lord Brahma, they're becoming manifest through his service like that, but ultimately it's the ultimate determining factor is Krishna. He's the person who's actually responsible, for all these different things being manifested through Brahma, both you could say gross and subtle. I guess the Veda. Well, let's see. 4 kinds of paraphernalia for conducting sacrifice. That's gross. Performer. That's but some of this is subtle, intellectual property, you could say. In other words, like the 4 principles of religiosity. I could tell you what a table looks like. Okay, here's a table, so I could tell you what that looks like. But what does a principle of religiosity look like? It's subtle. So it's it's intellectual property, you could say. That's the way they refer to it these days. So in other words, all the things that Brahma is able to do, the gross things he's able to manifest, the actual, planets and all the solid stuff and all the subtle stuff, such as the principles of religion, the Vedas. It's just knowledge. It's all, gross and subtle. It's coming from Krishna ultimately. He's just the conduit. He's a conduit. And Krishna's using him as a conduit to, produce the material worlds, gross and subtle stuff. So just like Brahma, we see here he's a conduit. It's just all manifesting through him. So where does Krishna get it? He must get it from someplace too. Brahma's getting his knowledge from Krishna. So where does Krishna get his knowledge from? How does Krishna know how to? He doesn't. He doesn't. It's described that Krishna is abhigya and swarat. With the expression, the buck stops here. Well, the buck stops with Krishna. There's no person, like Brahma's getting it all from Krishna. Krishna doesn't get it all from anybody else. He's abhigya, which means he's self-cognizant, and swarat, fully independent. Right? Krishna doesn't require anybody else. It's not like Krishna's being guided by the super soul. No, the super soul is just some plenary expansion of an expansion of an expansion of Krishna. Way subordinate to Krishna, and it's not like Krishna had to practice to get to where he was. No. Like you take some person in the material world, like say some great gymnast or something like that, and they got to, they're really spectacular what they can do, but they practice, again and again and again and again, No, Krishna didn't practice. Prabhupada, as the example for that, Krishna gives the example of Putana. And Krishna was, how more? 3 weeks or 3 months old, something like that. Very, infant. He was still an infant, and he knew how to kill Putana. He didn't have to practice. He didn't have an opportunity to practice. He didn't, perform the mystic yoga system, Prabhupada would say like that, or, have a chance to perform penances and austerities to achieve mystic powers. No, he's just had it, so that's the position of Krishna. He doesn't, he possesses this inconceivable talent and ability. He's not getting it from anybody else. He's not practicing to get it. It's not like he's getting it from a past, taking up from where he left off in a past life. Sometimes you have these children, child prodigies they call them. They could do amazing things even from a young age. Like there was that video Siddhanta was showing us of this reincarnation coming back, where this boy was sitting, his parents were out on the porch and they were hearing the piano play. Remember that one part? And they would say, well, they did have a piano in the house, and they think, what's going on? Who's playing the piano? And they walk in, they both come in from the porch into the living room where the piano is, and they see their 3-year-old son. He's sitting behind the piano playing honky-tonk piano like a total, concert pianist. And what? He never had any piano lesson. He just was sat down. So it's not like, so the point is, it's not like that for Krishna, because Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Ajopi-san Ishvaro, Ajopi-san Avyama, Bhutanam Ishvaro Pisan, Prakritim Swamadhistaya, Sambhavami Yuge Yuge, Sambhavami Atmamayaya. So he points out that although I am unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates, still I'm the Lord of everything. So Krishna's, he's there in his original spiritual body. There's no previous birth for Krishna. You see, there's maybe lots of births for ordinary souls, certainly conditioned souls, but Krishna, no. This is just another. He's, as I said, Swarat, Abhigya Swarat. Lord Brahma, Lord Brahma is in today's verse. In the Brahma Samhita, it says, Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadir Adi Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. The buck stops with Krishna. He's the beginning. He's the Anadi Adi. He's the origin of the origins. He's and the cause of everything. And so, what is our relationship to this, inconceivably talented and capable being? Well, Prabhupada, said many things, along those lines. But one of them was, which came up frequently, is Krishna's referred to as asamordva, which means no one is greater than or even equal to. No one is greater than Krishna, and no one is, and and I always like to suggest that at least as far as human beings go, is a gross understatement. Because, maybe there's some personalities that, you might think, Lord Shiva, he's pretty counting. But as far as human beings go, there's no question of being greater than or equal to Krishna. We're inconceivably inferior to the personality of Godhead. And sometimes it's so like, how would you say it? Such a great difference between, like an ordinary human being and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Like sometimes it just goes shh. I'll give you an example. Like I mentioned about gymnasts earlier, a few minutes ago. Once a month I go on YouTube and I'll type in something like the greatest gymnast, and I'll just like to watch to see what people can do, what people are capable of. So I did that the other night. I was watching these, watching the greatest male gymnast, and I was watching this video of this guy. I can't remember his name, but it was amazing. I was watching. I said, "What? How does a person do that? How could a human being even do that?" Like they're running along, and then they have like some sort of like a horse kind of thing. There's different paraphernalia. And then they push down on it, and he flips up in the air, and he spins around like I couldn't even count how many times the guy spun around. And then he lands and he flips, and it's like, wow, I couldn't. I feel like I'm doing really well when I can get up in the morning and stand up without hurting my back. And like, what? So the point is that I feel like I'm inconceivably inferior to even like human beings in so many different ways. there's human beings that are so incredibly talented and capable in so many different fields, in athletics and, like music or math. What to speak of Krishna? I mean, it's like human beings are like, we're nothing. I mean, when Ravana was after a benediction, Ravana wanted to kind of rule the universe, something like similar like to Hiranyakasipu, and he was a devotee of Lord Shiva. So he did a lot of austerities to get a benediction, and when he was offered the benediction, and he asked that he never could be killed, like by this race, that race. He didn't even mention human beings, right? He didn't even mention human beings, and the Prabhupada gave the reason was because human beings are considered so trivial, so insignificant, that Ravana didn't even bother to ask that he couldn't be killed by a human being, because he just thought that it's like, no question, I'm not going to be killed by a human being. I don't have to worry about that. You see? So it's kind of like we are, as regular old human beings, we're inconceivably inferior to Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And sometimes that just kind of escapes us. We just kind of, we forget, but it's a good thing to remember every now and then. So what should be then our attitude? Well, we should just be concerned to please Krishna. That's the conclusion of the sages of Naimisharanya, who were, being conducted or led by Sutta Goswami. There's that famous verse. It goes, Atak pumbir dvija shrestha vanashrama vibhagasha swanusti tashyadharmasha samsidhir haritoshanam. And, he says, this is Sutta Goswami speaking, that the perfection of executing one's duties according to the Varnashram system, which we were just hearing about here, is just to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari. And in his prayers, Sukadeva Goswami, in the 4th chapter, I believe it is, of the Srimad Bhagavatam, he's offering different prayers, and several of the prayers he concludes, may the Supreme Personality of Godhead be pleased by my words, be pleased with me. It's obvious, he's concerned that the Supreme Personality of Godhead be pleased with him. That's the idea. So, that should be what we're concerned about too, that just to live our lives, conduct our lives in such a way that Krishna is pleased with us. Like probably the greatest example of that would be the gopis. The gopis, they weren't concerned about even understanding Krishna. They weren't like, the gopis weren't after like knowledge of Krishna or realizing, no, they just wanted that Krishna was pleased. Actually, they were so much concerned that Krishna was pleased, they weren't even concerned whether they were pleased or not. It wasn't like they were thinking, I want Krishna to be pleased, so then because I know I'll be happy. The gopis were thinking, I just want Krishna to be pleased. I don't even care what I'm experiencing. And the epitome of that is appears in the last of the Lord Chaitanya's Shashantikam prayers. He says, Asli Shiva Padaratam Panastumam Adarshanam Mamahatam Karotuva Yatatata Vavadadhat Lampato Marprananatastus Eva Napadahadat. He's in the mood of Radharani. Lord Chaitanya is saying, I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he handles me roughly in his embrace or makes me brokenhearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, because he's always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. So in other words, Radharani, Lord Chaitanya, in the mood of Radharani, is saying, as long as Krishna's happy, I don't care what condition I'm in. He can make me brokenhearted. He can handle me roughly in his embrace. He can make me brokenhearted by not being present before me. Whatever. If he's happy, that's okay. You see, that's the highest. So we can aspire for that, but at least initially we should try to cultivate the mentality that I want to, pray for the ability, pray for the intelligence, pray for the ability to conduct our lives, live our lives in such a way that Krishna is pleased with us. That makes sense, right? Such a great being, inconceivably superior. Krishna's called the supreme being because he's superior to all other beings. He's supreme, the top. So it just makes sense that we should want to please. We should want that supreme being who's superior to all other beings to be pleased with us. And if we could someday come to the level of that mentality expressed by Lord Chaitanya in that last of his Shashantika prayers, that would be our great glorious success. Yeah, so, and that's accomplished by surrender. Like we have to, we should reflect on our position that, we're, as conditions, well, in general, conditions, barring present company who may not be conditioned souls. But a conditioned soul is in a position where he's like a prisoner, Imagine, it's like a hypothetical scenario you could imagine, like a man, he's in prison, and he's behind bars, and he's looking at his cell, which has a good view, and he sees, he's in San Quentin or something like that, and he sees the water, he sees people, going around on their boats, and people enjoying, life or whatever, and he's thinking, wow, I'd really like to get out of here to enjoy, I think, to experience a better quality of life. So what would be a good idea for him? Should he try to figure out how to break out of prison? Or should he try to figure out how to, cooperate with the authorities and get out on probation? The latter, you see? In other words, we're in this situation that we're in, being conditioned souls, because of defiance and rebellion to the will of Krishna, and if we want to do something that's going to be further defiant and rebellious, we're just going to further entangle ourselves, in the material energy. Krishna says, Daivi Yeshu Gunamayi Mama Maya Daracha. This divine energy of mind consisting of the three modes of material nature is insurmountable. So, yeah, and someplace in, I think in the 13th chapter, Prabhupada explains that it's due to this rebellious attitude. Everybody in this material world, Prabhupada said in one lecture, everybody in the material world means you're sinful. If you're here in the material world, if you have a material body, means you're sinful, from Lord Brahma down to the insignificant ant. So we could all understand that we're here because we did something wrong. We're not here because we're perfectly living in compliance or in submission to the will of Krishna. No, we're attempted to live in defiance or in rebellion to the will of Krishna, and as a result, we're conditioned souls. We're in this ridiculous situation, and to get out, we have to do the opposite. We have to be prepared to live in, voluntary compliance or submission to the will of Krishna, which is, we get it's expressed, it's understood through the instructions of the spiritual master. That's living in in compliance or in submission to the will of Krishna. So that's what we have to work on. And give up the mentality of, Prabhupada quoted from Milton about 11 times in the Veda basis, about 11 references to this book by John Milton called Paradise Lost. And one of the famous lines in that work was, it was by Lucifer, Satan, who was formerly known as Lucifer. He said, better to reign in hell than to serve in heaven. That's his, famous line. But that's the attitude that got us in this trouble. And that's what people who aren't devotees are thinking. Better to reign in the material world than to be a servant of Krishna, a servant of God. But no, that's the exact wrong mentality. That's what got us into this trouble in the first place. Got to give up that mentality and adopt the opposite way of thinking. So I'll stop there. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, Prabhu. Maharaj. Sorry.
You were talking about how Krishna is awesome Lord, but there's another word that describes Krishna. We see it in Chaitanya Charitamrita. One verse is Swayam Bhagavan Krishna Ekaleshwar Advitiya Nandatmaja Rasika Shekhar. It says, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and everyone else is his servant. And he's Advitiya, one without a second. He doesn't even have a rival. Just like there was one movie critic who described one movie star, Indian movie star, Aishwarya Rai, as the most beautiful woman in the world and the second most beautiful woman in the world. So Krishna is the coolest person ever and the second coolest person ever.
No rival.
Not even a rival.
No rival. Anybody else? Any questions? Okay, thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada.